Good evening, good evening, good evening. How's everyone doing here? So happy to have you. Hey, Raheem, what's going on, my brother? How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good, I'm good. Hey, everybody, Roz McCarthy here with Minorities for Medical Marijuana. We have a special event tonight as we celebrated 420 all week. Right now, just stop for a second. Make sure that you share. This is going to be a powerful night with a powerful conversation, one of a kind. So make sure that you share this right now because it's going to be exciting. M4MM has been doing a celebration 20 weeks and offering service to our community. We had conversation on on social equity, a Zoom marathon, and tonight we end the week with a conversation with our HBCU students about the film "The Grass Is Greener." Our special guest, the one and only, the director, the genius, the just the creative mind behind this piece, Mr. Fab Freddy. So, Raheem, thank you, security, for your support. For believing in what we're doing here at M4MM. Please introduce yourself and tell them how important this night is for you too.
Hey everyone, yeah, my name is Raheem. I'm the Director of Corporate Social Responsibility at Curaleaf. I don't think I can say quite enough how important conversations like this are to the industry, particularly in this moment. I think is we have this momentum of legalization that's sort of sweeping across the country. I think it's important for, while we celebrate the legalization of the plant, to really recognize the history of criminalization in this country. So I want to thank Fab, I want to thank Roz for this conversation, making it today. Thank you so much.
We go. All right. Thank you, Raheem. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you, Curaleaf. Now, without further ado, let's bring on our students. We have Akon, we have Kim, we got Matthew, we got Kelly. Going down. Hi, Candu, Nadir, Lakeisha, and last but not least, welcome, Mr. Fab Freddy. What's up, family? How are you? Hey.
How you doing?
Yeah, we're great. And without further ado, the diva, the Dom, my COO with M4MM, who we couldn't get in because we got 10 slides, so we got her in, Miss Kit Grimes. What's going on, Kitty? Hey, girl.
Hey, everybody. I'm so excited. All of you.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, so listen, guys, we got 1 hour. We're going to do this. We're so grateful to have you, Fab, with us tonight. I want to give all the students you got 30 seconds. Introduce yourself, what school you go to, and what you're studying. So, Akon, you go first.
Hi, everyone. My name is Akon. I go to North Carolina Central School of Law. Upon graduating, I hope to practice cannabis law and entertainment law.
Kim.
Hi, so my name is Kim Scott, and I am a rising 3L at FAMU Law. I am also the Minorities for Medical Marijuana chapter president at FAMU Law. And upon graduation, I will also be studying cannabis law with a concentration in licensing and trademarking.
Awesome.
Matthew, it's up to you, love.
Hey, everybody. My name is Matthew Gaffney. I attend Morehouse for finance, and I'm currently co-founder of the CBD-based startup in Atlanta.
Awesome. Lakeisha?
Hello, I'm Lakeisha Camise from the Southern University Law Center. I am graduating May 14th. Woo! I currently work with Alera Holistic Healthcare. That is one of the medical marijuana licensees with Southern University Agricultural Center. I'm also the chapter president for SULC's M4MM. And when I graduate soon, I will be concentrating in cannabis law and public policy because laws drive this business.
Absolutely. Thank you. Nadir?
Love it.
Yeah. What's going on, everybody? Nadir Pearson here, founder of Smart, graduated from Brown University, and just really excited to really help propel, our HBCUs, college cannabis, and the future and next generation of entrepreneurs and professionals in the space.
Can do.
Can do. It's up to you. I was talking on mute. You know how that goes.
Okay, no problem, no problem. What's up, everybody? I'm Candace Clark, also known as Candle, the Farm Plug, and I'm actually a PhD student at the illustrious Tuskegee University. I am in my second year of the Integrative Development and Public Policy program. I'm also one of the chapter advisors for SMART at Tuskegee. And I'm also a cooperative extension agent. So like I said, I'm the farm plug. So I'm coming to you all from the agricultural perspective, right? From the home of GWC, George Washington Carver himself. So a pleasure to be here. Thank you for telling these stories. And I'm excited to dive into this history with y'all.
My name is Kelly Clairvaux, FAMU Law. I just recently graduated from FAMU Law. I'm looking to practice real estate law, especially with the intersection between cannabis law. Something that we have learned is that these people that are opening up these dispensaries are needing real estate law lawyers in order to obtain the property. So I really love this conversation that we're about to have and look forward to working with you guys in the future.
And last but not least, we will have the man of the hour. Introduce yourself, Fab, to everybody.
Yes, thank you. This is great. I'm so happy to meet all these incredible future leaders. My name is Fred Brathwaite. Most know me as Fab Five Freddy, filmmaker, visual artist. And as you obviously know, I made this film, Grass is Greener, about the history of cannabis in America that I learned a hell of a lot while making the film, and happy to be here to chat with you guys.
Absolutely. Kit?
Sounds good. So first question I have, for one, I actually watched it twice because, to me, the first time you watch it, it's kind of like, ooh, oh, really? And then the second time you watch it, you kind of like get in the little nuances and really delve in. So for one, how was it going through the history? Because you come from the history, right? Your father, you were connected to the industry, and then to have all of that connection to it, and then to learn so much. What was the experience like, just kind of getting that level of knowledge and just history?
Yeah, it was really eye-opening. Yeah, it was really eye-opening because I hope you guys have seen the film. If not, like, I tell a little bit of my story and background. And, I grew up around really smart, connected black parents that were plugged in, especially my dad, who was best friends with a jazz musician named Max Roach, who was one of the pioneers of bebop jazz. And so in my house growing up, my dad, his friends got together, hung out, talked about everything going on the planet, and they indulged in cannabis. They weren't big drinkers. They smoked cannabis and talked. And that was the thing that connected to the jazz scene, to a kind of a black kind of hipster, intellectual, cultural scene that this was a part, but it was a very taboo thing. And I really couldn't go around because it was equated with like heroin and cannabis, which are both on the schedule 1 at the highest level, were perceived or depicted to be that same way. And so I grew up around the plant. When I became a teenager, I began to also indulge, but constantly aware of the pressures of the keep it under the cover, because it had such a heavy negative stigma. And so that's a bit of my background in this. And I don't know if I'm answering your question accurately, but yeah, I just learned a lot. I knew a bit early on, but really in the research, and most of it was done thanks to Google and YouTube, so many clips and moments that we then dug deeper in once we got a budget to make the movie. And then even more info we were able to find, and the research team that we put on to help, they just went super deep into other archives of information. And that's the great thing about documentary filmmaking overall, which I'm a big fan of, because we're in an information age where we can skim the surface of a lot of topics and then go deeper. And that's what we were able to actually do. And that's how I learned and saw, like, we got all that information that we crammed into that 97 minutes of Grass is Greener.
Yeah. And it really was amazing and eye-opening. What was the experience like with the different interviews that you had? Because you had a wide array of interviews, from, you know, the very known, well, Snoop Dogg, to, you know, some other people who would not have necessarily been known without, you know, the film. So how was it like, you know, actually meeting with those different people and really hearing their stories and kind of going through and learning the journey through that?
Yeah, well, some of the people I actually knew. Some I knew kind of well. Of course, a lot of the music people, having been close to the culture of hip hop back in the days when I worked on Yo MTV Raps, is how I got to know a lot of those guys. But some of those and then the other guy, Steve Hager, older white guy that was the editor of High Times magazine. I knew him because, interestingly, this guy wrote the first book on hip hop. Every time I think of that, I'm like, you wrote the first book on him. But he was a cool dude, had been a journalist at a daily newspaper, came to write a story on a graffiti art show that I had put together back in the early 80s. And this is before there was any positive press or media about graffiti. At the time, it was still totally underground, and it was a thing that was just hated and, you know, whatever. He wrote a very positive article, got fired from the newspaper. It was the Daily News. They pretty much let him go because they couldn't believe he wrote such a positive piece about this art exhibit, because clearly what we were doing at that point was taking it off of doing it like illegally on the trains. And that's how that was the first thing I did. If you don't know anything about my background, like, I was a graffiti artist. I wrote my name in spray paint everywhere I thought it needed to be. But I was on some wild kind of teenage stuff. And then at a point, I began to think about art, and then learn, as the graffiti movement really developed into ways of expressing yourself as opposed to just tagging your name up. And then I realized that there could be a connection between pop art, Andy Warhol, and these things that had happened in the 60s. I was like, wait a minute, they inspired by the same stuff we were. So then my mission with that was to figure out a way to get an audience that would listen to this young Black kid that didn't go to art school, that made this argument. And so that's beginning. This guy, Steve Hager, then after getting fired after writing this positive story, he became close to the downtown cultural scene in New York, where I was making moves at that time, amidst people from the punk rock, new wave scene, you know, which is the mix. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of a painter who's super, well, it's a weird story. He was a close friend. He's been passed away a long time. His name is Jean-Michel Basquiat. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that name. Well, we all were in the same crew, started at the same time. His work recently sold for over $110 million. That's one painting, which is not the point that the work cost so much, but the work that we put in to make things happen. Even though he passed away really young, what we was trying to do was on point, and it worked way after his point. So that things that we did then opened up a whole movement of people that come from the graffiti scene to learning how to be visual artists. That begins something called street art. And this guy, Steve Hager, in the movie, wrote the first book on hip hop, music, the beginnings, and then also wrote one of the first books on this East Village art scene. This was a scene in New York that featured myself, Jean-Michel, and all the art people. So after that, he becomes the editor of High Times magazine, and had the brilliant idea, early 90s, just to put hip hop people on the cover. That included Snoop, Method Man, Redman, and a whole bunch of other people who endorsed cannabis through their music. And so once again, that was how, when the idea came to me, it was like, wait a minute, this would be a dope way to tell a story. using the history of America's music from jazz all the way, because most cutting edge musicians indulged in the plant from every genre of music. And then I knew the criminal justice story was going to be something. And that's where I learned way more about that and how horrendous these cannabis laws were designed to specifically target people of color. And that's really was like blew my mind how focused they was on the racism. And it really was only because we was making this dope music. People wanted to come and hear the music, feel the vibe. It started in New Orleans, and white folks wanted, hey, pass that over here. You know, it's feeling good. You know, give me a drink. That's all it was. You know, Louis Armstrong. And them racists saw that. They was like, what? Nah, we got to figure out a way to stop that. So they turned it into some super evil, like you will grow 3 heads if you smoke reefer. You will murder your family. You'll just rape, rob, and pillage. That literally was how dramatic they made it seem. And so that's what led to this whole nonsense that we are unraveling now. This is great.
Well, y'all were making dope music about dope music, so it's, you know, y'all were setting the trends. And coming from, I'm an 80s baby, unlike some of these whippersnappers that we got with us today.
All good.
You know,
it's all good.
So I know about the graffiti age, and I'm a Bronx baby, so shout out to the BX.
Okay, that's what's up.
Yeah, so, you know, definitely respect to that, especially like you didn't grow up in the 80s or 90s in New York and didn't see all kinds of tags and some really, you know, amazing art, just whether it was music or, you know, the house parties, anything like that. But just going into more what you were saying about, you know, the looking at the social advocacy and looking at how people are criminalized for it. You know, the documentary itself really goes into the life of and part. It's like every time. Give me 1 second. I knew exactly what I was gonna say.
Well, while you're doing that, Kit, while you're doing that, while you're doing that, I want to bring our students in, because I want to ask the students, what was something that jumped out in your mind that you didn't know that was revealed in the film? And go round robin, because I know it was a whole bunch for me, but what did you find that you didn't know that you were like, dang, like it just kind of blew your mind away?
For me, it was the whole from cannabis to marijuana to target the Latino and Black. I was like, what? I didn't know that name was just to target the Black and Latino community. I was really shocked.
Yeah. Anybody else? Anything that blew your mind away?
For me, especially with, I'm sorry. Especially with the cannabis laws really starting to expand now, and expansion really starting to expand, knowledge of it is as well. And I thought all that was relatively new. I didn't really know about things like the LaGuardia report, and just how that information was already readily available, but people were persuaded and taught to just turn a blind eye to it.
Yep.
Good. I didn't know about the LaGuardia report either. That was something new for me as well. Kim.
Yeah, he actually kind of took the words out of my mouth. I was pretty shocked about the LaGuardia report, but I was also shocked to find out that Mr. Noble was incarcerated for as long as he was for just 2 joints. That really blew my mind. And the fact that they tried to impose a mandatory minimum on that really blew my mind. So that was my thing.
No, a mandatory minimum was imposed. That was why he got so much of a sentence. And then it revealed and then illustrated one of tens of thousands of stories of how Black folks are forced into these for-profit prisons, which are oftentimes in that small town in Louisiana, where that prison was. Those prisons are the big money earners in the prison. So the whole culture of a lot of these towns is revolved around putting us in jail to then for the thousands of dollars that then come in to house us in prisons. That's the big earner in these towns. That was mind-blowing to me as well.
What a lot of people don't know is that when people go to jail for different places, a lot of the times the money, like
we can barely hear you down there though.
We can't hear you.
Mad low. You gotta talk.
I don't know. Can you guys hear me?
There we go. Much better. Much better.
Much better.
Yes.
Okay. What I was saying is that what a lot of people don't realize is that when you go to jail, and you go to jail too in a different city that you're not actually a part of, when they do the census and they do all the numbers, you are actually considered a resident of that state in that city. So that's how you have a lot of these little cities get thousands and thousands of dollars, because they have all of these inmates there, even though the inmates aren't necessarily residents of the city. So, it's definitely this crazy cash cow. And leading into what you guys were saying, as far as Mr. Noble, how was that experience? Just speaking to him and just learning about his story, because his story, it's unfortunate that it's not a unique story, right? It would be great.
Yeah.
That this
So
would be
basically, I'm sorry. Yeah. So it was a decision that we wanted to illustrate certain topics and go in, if you will, to give you a fuller picture. So there were a couple of options that I looked at of stories that we could go in and film to dramatize and kind of give you the full picture, as opposed to just the number of how many people and the percentage of, unfortunately, people of Black and brown that primarily are in the prison system. This is a big reason why. Another film, if you guys have not seen, I just want to point out, which inspired me a lot in the criminal justice aspects, is a film by Ava DuVernay called The 13th on Netflix, which is the 13th, based on the 13th Amendment, which is supposed to have abolished slavery. Her film shows how the criminal justice system has essentially kept slavery going. And so you get a hell of a lot of facts. And then in my film shows a lot of those people in prisons is for these nonviolent cannabis arrests. And so in looking at a couple of different cases to look at, what I had remembered was on Vice, one of those cannabis shows on that Vice channel, I think it might have been Weediget, they looked at his family, and it was a show where he was still in prison, and it was a picnic that his family had, and the host of the show was telling the story and his family. And I just thought, man, this is so horrible. Like, here's this beautiful Black family, like in Louisiana. So that had remained with me. And I said, and also it connected to the fact that so much of the beginnings of cannabis history, as well as legal history, happened in Louisiana, which is also significant as it relates to the film, because this is where jazz is born. And Louis Armstrong, really like one of the great architectural founders, proponents of jazz music, literally was the most famous Black man in America for many years back then. Prolific cannabis smoker, advocate for the plant at that time. And he's from New Orleans. So I like the connection. There were so many cultural connections to this place that, and then trust me, I was hoping I could have stretched my film into 2 or 3 more episodes, because every topic, I had way more material. I could have expanded greatly on the New Orleans jazz cultural thing, deeper reggae, Jamaican side. I could have went deeper into the aspect. One of the things I regret was there's an incredible sister that I know you guys know, Roz. That family, they're all doctors. I'm spazzing on
the Knox doctors.
Knox
Rachel,
Horton. I interviewed them because of the couple of the growers, Jesse Horton, the other Indian cat, Sid from Pistol Point. That family, Rachel Knox and her. I interviewed her mother, father, and Rachel, and I just couldn't put it all in, because they're doing incredible work, really groundbreaking work on medical cannabis. They literally have a consultancy where you can come. I actually brought it for a cousin that lives in Florida. They had a video link. She sent her medical stuff, and she was able to tell her, well, here's what you need to take for these issues but from a doctor, not the dispensary person or your weed dealer. This was a doctor said, well, this is what you need to deal with these serious medical issues. So
absolutely. Hey,
that's a long answer to explain why I ended up focusing on Bernard Noble and his family. But the real amazing blessing that happened after interviewing the family, we had no idea he was going to get a parole, which I knew was going to be a special part of the movie. And literally a week after interviewing the family and the emotion that came out, his mother, his sisters breaking down in tears, I heard that he was going to get a parole. So we knew immediately we would fly back just to film him getting out of prison.
That is a really amazing part of the film itself, just to kind of see how $5 worth, you know.
Yeah.
When I think about that and the significance that 13 years potentially, even though he did the 8.
Yeah,
right?
that was his. Yes, yeah.
Years
he served 7 of a 13-year sentence for 2 joints.
For 2 joints, and when you think about that, like it goes more into the significance of how we're viewed in the system, in our system and society, as being less than people almost, because there are people who have let's face it, like have murdered and have committed more heinous crimes and have gotten less harsh sentences than
absolutely. I mean, basically, I just want to jump in and say, this is when you hear the word, which is great that all these things have come to the top. This is what systemic racism looks like. It's like how deeply it's embedded in so many aspects of society. And I'm so happy that a bunch of you guys are dealing with law, because within law, there is a whole lot of power to get into the nooks and crannies of the system and tear this shit apart. Y'all, that's what y'all have to actually do, because there's an incredible film that I'm watching. I got one more episode to watch. It's called Exterminate All the Brutes. It's a documentary by Raoul Peck, a filmmaker that I love. I have a poster for his film on Lumumba over here. And another film that he did 2 years ago was on James Baldwin called I'm Not Your Negro. He has a 4-part film that dissects white supremacy, systemic racism. He goes deep to its real literal core in a broad scope, 4 parts. That is one of the most informative things I've ever seen, that goes deeper than most of us have known. And once again, the beauty and the great thing about documentaries in this time, hell of a lot of information, still scratching the surface, and you guys can go even deeper. But that's what that is like. And that was an up close look at the criminal justice system for me. To see that man walk out of prison into the arms of his family was a moving, powerful, emotional moment. I kind of knew, if you didn't see it, I'm gonna spoil it, but I knew it was going to end this movie. I knew nothing could top that. And then from a filmmaking point of view, I wanted to craft it, so I knew I wanted to have that moment without the audience knowing. So I kind of wrapped the film up and then played it in a way where you wasn't going to know, like, bang, and then there he was, walked out in his parents'
because we honestly didn't know, like when it happened, really didn't know. Like I was just like, oh, that's a nice little surprise. But I definitely wanted to rise.
You know what? Hey Kip, before you go any further, before you go any further, Candu had she had a point she wanted to make. Candu, what was your point you wanted to make?
Yes. Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, like,
how do you say your name? Is it Kendo or Kendu?
It's Kendo, like farming out the
Kendo. Sorry,
like
Kendo. That's dope. I'm like looking at the spelling.
Is never closed. Like
the farm plug.
Yes, the farm plug indeed. So that's what that was gonna be my comment, right? What really stood out for me in the documentary is when I'm watching it, I'm seeing the videos of the men going out to work in the jails and they got hoes with them. And for me, from the agricultural perspective, I'm looking at the way that land ownership, that has always, our agricultural expertise, our just ability to be alchemists with the land has always played a role in our history on this place. So it's so beautiful how you started in the South, right? And when we look at the Great Migration, the fact that you put that timeline on there and it was visual, and when I'm looking at the actual time passing by, I'm like, okay, wait, damn. The 30s, that was the Great Depression. That's agricultural. Okay. Alphabet soup, the Agricultural Adjustment Act. Like even today, the Farm Bill is one of the largest bodies of legislation that our tax dollars go to, and our Black farmers are losing their land. We would not have had a civil rights movement had it not been for these Black landowners, ranchers, and farmers, right? So, just zooming out and looking at it from an agricultural perspective, this is a plant. It is a piece of medicine. It's something that we should all have the right to have access to in a healthy way. And so we don't have that. When our relationship with the land is disconnected, there are so many other things that unfold, right? And so, Freddie, I really wanted to inquire more about your background and what your connections to the land look like, because my mother's from, she's from Harlem and everything, but I know I used to sit at the feet of my grandfather and we used to listen to records and everything, but he used to tell me about picking tobacco in Virginia and how much that taught him and encouraged him. And then my grandmother was from Barbados, and she used to tell me about sugar cane and stuff. So we have these stories, and sometimes they're entangled with trauma, but I think there's so much beauty in them. So I was just wondering about what your story is and what that connection looks like.
No, that's great. I love the way you broke it down, and that's a great question. So I like to tell people, on the hip slick tip, that I'm born, bred, collard green fed right here in New York City. I came up in Brooklyn, but I'm on these concrete streets. Thankfully, as a kid, my mother would send me to a camp in Virginia. And I went probably about 4 years ago when I was a little boy, under 10, 11, 12, in that young age group. And of course, I didn't want to go. I wanted to run them goddamn streets. But then as soon as we got there, we fell into the whole thing. It really was like a farm. And this Black woman wanted to do something for like city kids. So it was a small camp. It wouldn't be no more than 20, 30 kids, all from Brooklyn. And that's where I got an understanding of, they had a little things growing. We would go out and pick a tomato and put some salt on it. And then I remember being at this camp, I can spot and know different fruit and different trees from the leaves. So I had a little bit of experience early on with that you so brilliantly brought up. And thinking of the plant and thinking of what we did, like we were in those fields and cultivating all of these things, farm to table, literally. And so that's a really great way that you phrased it. I'm glad you're learning all those things, because as this new burgeoning multi-billion-dollar cannabis business continues to grow, those skills are critical. And as what's going on, I'm sure you guys have heard, New York just came online, which is probably going to rival California in terms of the market, New Jersey, Connecticut. As the whole East Coast comes in line, there's right now a brain drain on people with the skills to know how to grow that plant effectively. It's not just throwing them seeds in the ground, which any of us could do, but really knowing how to get that high quality cannabis that has become a thing. There's a shortage and a brain drain right now on cats. So it was great and on the legal side and just all the things that you guys are studying, super duper important. And I just want to this is going to be one of the first places I'm publicly going to actually talk about this. And I created a cannabis brand inspired by what I learned in the film, but also some of the things that Killer Mike and Cassandra Frederique talk about at the end of the movie. Cassandra talks about, I'm calling it reparations. And then Killer Mike echoes that and says, if we don't seize this opportunity, it's on the par of, this is generational wealth. It's the possibility is at our doorstep, just like those alcohol companies did those things. So I've been like a complete artist, filmmaker, painter, but I just was like, I want to do something to address the situation and help the situation. So I created a cannabis brand inspired by Bernard Noble and to help him, and some proceeds are going to help other situations. Once again, we know his name is Bernard Noble. The brand is called Be Noble. And we made a really unique agreement with Curaleaf. And shortly, we're going to roll out a huge campaign to articulate the moves that we're going to make. Bernard is going to be out front speaking about these things. So we're going to roll out like a major thing. And this is what it's
You know, it's meant to give back to the people that it's ostracized. You know, it's meant to give back to the people of Black and brown that have been in prison for years and years for $5 worth of, you know, 2 joints. This is what it's meant to do. You were able to go out and not only tell his story, but now a brand has been made in his honor, and now he'll be able to not and share that story even further. And that's what,
right. Yeah.
you know,
And on the front
that
line.
is a part of the reparations right there. Is that's
Absolutely. Like I said, these were things that inspired me and resonated with me heavily, hearing these voices express and once again, I'm learning while doing. I'm no way, you know, I've been a cannabis aficionado, but I didn't understand all of this. I've never been around grows in Cali with the lights, and I'm like, wow. But I'm a quick learner though. That's how I've done what I've done. And when I go in, I go all the way in. And so
Absolutely.
I went all the way in, but I'm like, no, I got to do something here. And so that's what we're doing. So it's a unique situation. In fact, Bernard, I know, Raj, you guys have done things with Bernard.
We have.
Like, we're talking every day. This is really like a unique situation that I'm happy. Like, once again, it's a cause-based brand, and we're looking to do other brands, and everything that we want to develop, we want to give a portion of our proceeds to relevant issues affecting primarily people of color, marginalized people, etc.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
I think that
let's
the parent company that we formed is called Revolution.
But make sure that you get that information to Roz. I just want to make sure that we give our panel a chance to ask some questions. It's not.
Oh yes, I'm sorry. Yes, please. I can talk, y'all.
Mike. So, but you know what? It's important what we're talking about, and I definitely just want to make sure that our panel gets a chance to chime in, because you know, me and Roz, we could chat it up with you all day, but we want to get the youthful minds
bring the panel in.
So anybody who has a question, go ahead and okay, Lakeisha, go ahead, please.
Not so much a question, but one of the statements that stood out in the film is that you cannot regulate without reparations, right? And reparations,
Cassandra said, yeah.
Yes, and it comes in many forms. And a lot of people don't recognize this. It's not just letting us be able to get in on the licensing and establish our own dispensaries and actually be part of this multi-billion-dollar cannabis industry. It's also making sure that we have that diversity and inclusion piece at the table in executive form and just getting into the industry to start. I can proudly say that where I'm working now, which is medical cannabis, I have successfully, as of last month, hired about 1/3 of the workforce there. And they're diverse. They are minorities, they're women, they're Latin descent. And it's where we have those opportunities to be in a certain position and space that we actually have to carve that out and make sure that we are having them into that, being included into that cannabis industry. So we have them in our cultivation team. We have them as lab techs. We have them as quality control managers working with our regulatory agency. So we actually recruited one from the New Orleans crime lab. By the way, I'm in Louisiana, in Baton Rouge, originally from New Orleans, love jazz, and grew up on Yo and TV raps. Okay, kids?
So it's all connected.
It's all together.
Yes.
We're just going to call each other cousin in a minute.
Yes.
I love it. Matthew, you had a question?
Yes, I did. Also, I just want to say thank you to you guys once again for the opportunity. Extremely grateful for you guys to just take the time out for me to be a part of this. I had a question because a part that stuck out to me was just the whole inclusion part, specifically in the field. And we all know how the cannabis market is really starting to grow and bloom, and we tend to get left out of it, just like how we did with prohibition to a degree. So me and a couple of my friends, we own a CBD delivery company, next day CBD delivery company here in Atlanta called Cannago. And we've been fundraising we're launching in Atlanta this spring. But one of the hardest things has just been able to break through that whole VC realm, or just be able to get included, get to the table. We've had a really, really hard time. And we found some people to back us, but just any advice you would have as far as just being able to get in contact with the people that we need to just be able to really continue to make the impact that we want to make, because we obviously know that by being a delivery platform, we're taking away a key vital part of the whole exchange, which is just the whole inclusion. Well, not the inclusion. I'm sorry, being able to talk to dispensary owners and get the whole educational piece. So we try to supplement that with like blogs and educational content, cooking shows as well. And we're actually partnered with a Black-owned dispensary in Grant Park. But still, a lot of people just have their stigmas and their own opinions about cannabis, and obviously investing in cannabis, specifically minority-owned companies. So just any advice with that?
So this is in the Chicago. Is that the location?
Oh no! I'm sorry. I'm originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, but we're located in Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, Atlanta. Oh,
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right. So I'm not really totally aware. Roz is probably and Roz and Kim Kid are probably a little more knowledgeable about other orgs or information bases, because that's the unfortunate thing. The way it's in every state has a different dynamic, and I'm not that super knowledgeable, but I want to just, as it relates back to what Keisha was just talking about, that quote, Cassandra Frederique, I learned because I went up to Albany, which is the capital of New York, a couple of weeks before the film came out, and screened the film for a bunch of legislatures of color that had been fighting for a very progressive cannabis bill, which literally is the bill that New York just passed. So I got to understand the fight, how long the fight. They really received the film well because it amplified the issues they were trying to explain to other people in the legislature. Once again, I wish I could be more immediately helpful, but I'm sure Roz may have some orgs or some situations that you can link with that could be more helpful, because this is part of the fight. Even though we've got a progressive bill that passed, it hasn't been enacted. And I've heard states that have passed progressive recreational legalization cannabis bills have had good intentions, but then the way it's played out, because there's big money players that are throwing money around and trying to cut corners and get in, and then essentially throw a pile of money in your lap. Somebody might take it, but then realize they're about to make 1,000 times more than that on a regular basis, and you just gave up. So it's tricky as we tiptoe into this. So that's important, but like an information base is important.
By raising your hand, how many people want to establish a business in cannabis? Who's looking to actually transition into the industry? Raise your hand.
Wow.
Okay. So there's an interest there. Yeah. So we'll talk offline, Matthew, because we'll talk about some funding that's coming around. And if you're on the CBD side, there's some conventional funding. And if you're not on the CBD side, if you're going to be on the regulated medical program that's coming into Georgia, what does that look like? And how do you set yourself up for success? Because that's what we do at M for MM. We gonna see. Listen, Fab is his film. It inspires. It should, and hopefully it inspired you guys. And then we'll come around and show you how to figure out to navigate through. Kendo, did you have a question? Go ahead, honey.
I did have another question for you, Fab Freddy. So again, like I said, I look from the agricultural perspective, and I reflect on, George Washington Carver and the innovations that he made, right? Yeah. And a lot of them started with him waking up in the morning, taking a walk outside. He would see something, ask a question, and it would result in being the father of sustainable agriculture, right? But one thing that a lot of people don't talk about him with was the role that imagination and curiosity really played in his ability to be innovative, right? And I think, cannabis, just like any other agriculture industry, is going to have production, it's going to have retail, it's going to have waste, it's going to have, it's you know what I'm saying? It has all of these things, and we're going to need chocolatiers. We're going to need all of these real sexy, niche Black people, indigenous people in these spaces. But I just wanted to know if you could comment on the role of imagination and curiosity and like Afrofuturism and just what that actually means for us as young people moving forward.
Wow, well, that's another great question.
It's loaded, right?
Yeah, it's loaded. It's dope, and I think creativity is key. I mean, that's what I do, and I could just once again, I love the. I guess as I go into this relationship with Curaleaf, and we'll go to some of the different states and look at the grow operations and talk and see, because I'm still in the learning phase as well. I just want to say, like, Berner, who I learned about in the process of working on the film, he's the cat behind cookies. That's why when I learned, I thought Wiz Khalifa had came up with the Girl Scout cookie train. Growers was like, oh, no, no, no. It came from him. I was like, oh, really? And then as I learned more and more about him, I realized that he was close to them dope cats that really indulged in the plant, that were able to craft some of the most popular strains out there.
Genetics.
Become a much on that George Washington Carver imagination tip. That's going to become a big thing. You feel me? As you kind of learn and understand, like, well, what if I get one that smells like this and tastes like that, but that gives me this vibe and that vibe? You feel me? So I think there's going to be a whole lot of room for that soon come.
Hey, Kelly, you had a question? Go for it, brother.
Yeah, I had a question. So one of the parts in the film is when you had like two guys that were, I guess, in cannabis business, and they were asked about how would they allow people who are incarcerated for drug possession to be able to work in the field. And both of them, they just wrote them off as potheads, as like minorities as potheads. And it's crazy because they're like advocating that cannabis is not bad and it's something for everyone. But then they're saying the people who were selling it back in the days, minorities, are just potheads, and they just threw them off, threw them off as potheads. And so, are you seeing these people, these businesses, actually? I know either hiring people with backgrounds, I guess minorities, period, if they have like those charges, or are they trying to just lock out everyone in the past who had a record?
Yeah, well, that is what has happened, and that once again, the complex web of systemic racism, the policies, the kind of responses to the question that we threw at that cat, and like how they kind of say, because if it's been most of us that are criminalized and like potheads, like what is he talking about? So that was like he just. Yeah, that's an example of what we're up against. So that's really what it is. And that's why the fight, even though these states coming online seem like it's all good and it's all a good thing, but the fight must be continuous because there's different levels that they've systematically fought to keep us out of the mix. And that's one of the situations. That's why I was happy to catch that dude out there and to put him on blast. But then the way the film intercuts with my brother Jeff Morton out of Portland, who's an incredible grower, who went through all of that drama legally. He was in prison. His father got in prison, and he's still fighting. And one of the few brothers in the game in Portland. And he's doing his damn thing. So it's a fight, and it's going to continue to actually be one and expose anything that we see. And that's part of the profits from what I'm developing with Bernard Noble is orgs that are fighting and raising their will. Like we want to throw some of that paper at them so we can keep highlighting, yeah, it's all good. And Jay-Z got his brand and we got this, but brothers are still getting treated like that over here, and sisters can't get in, and we want to address that and wave that flag high. That's what we about. That's why it's going to be a revolution. We ain't playing with this.
We ain't playing. Lakeisha, you had a question?
Well, yeah, to piggyback a little bit off of what Kelly was saying and also what Fab was saying, we get it on both ends as minorities, right? So we have these, when I was a DNA paralegal back in Dallas County, I did with post-conviction exonerations. That were people who should have never been in prison and they were locked up, railroaded there. So they have a small set of laws to get those people out. But then we're also seeing the issue of how they're also criminalizing us on the front end as well, right? So we have them where they're still busting people for these low-level amounts. They're still putting them in prison. So we need like laws, like I said again, on both ends. Those that whenever we have that legislation that's being written in, it has to be retroactive. It has to pick up all those people that we left behind. Like, again, that principle of Sankofa, going back and reaching back for what we left behind. We
Absolutely.
can't leave them in the dark and then capitalize off this business and feel like, oh, well, I'm feeling like a bit of a rebel because I'm in the cannabis industry and previously it wasn't offered as an opportunity to me. Then we have to be smart about on the front end. New Orleans did a decriminalization bill regarding those small low levels. Instead of giving them a criminal prosecution, they get a civil issue, right? They get issued a little fine. They have to go to court. That means that frees up our judicial system, right? This person is not being hauled into the prison, down to the jail. They're not being arraigned. They're not wasting the judge's time. They're not wasting law enforcement's time for something as small as like a couple of grams, right? So by doing that, you're making it civil instead of criminal. You're keeping that off their record and you're letting that person actually have a chance to participate in this industry later on in a legal aspect, right? So that's one of the things I also worked on with in Shreveport and also now in Lake Charles. You got to get active and say, let's look at this decrim bill. How did this work for New Orleans? Now let's look at the landscape and the audience of the Shreveports, the Monroes, the other areas, the major cities here. And let's try and see how we can get that, work with our legislators and our elected officials and say, hey, I got you in office, not because you're cute or you're smart or whatever. I got you in because I need this done. You essentially work for me. You have to earn that vote again for reelection. So this is what we have to do. We have to be very strategic about that. And we have to go to those folks and say, hey, this is my issue. I'm your constituent and you have to address it.
That's it. That's the blueprint. And that's what needs to happen in these places to make change. You've got to really agitate on the grassroots level, inform people about this is what's really going on. And I think this is a process that's happening, but in those states like Louisiana, and once again, I'm not a criminal justice expert, but there's many of those for-profit prisons and the politicians and everybody get elected because they know that's the big cap, that's the earner in town is keeping that business going and those for-profit prisons. But you're 100% right, and that's what we need to have a lot more of.
Nadir, I know you had a question next, definitely. I mean, the conversation, y'all are just, shit. Go ahead, Nadir.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I think one point y'all mentioned is like the fact that a lot of our Black men, women, people are being arrested and put in prison, and that's a generational effect, right?
Right.
That affects the family as a home. People are being taken out of the home. And there's an absence. My father, if in that instance, is a victim of the war on drugs, right? Somebody who's lost a severe amount of time due to being, persecuted and the options and the path that, people have chosen. But a lot of it is engineered, right? We've seen it time and time again. And that's what we think of, the school to prison pipeline. And that's why that exists.
Yeah.
And I guess, how I think about this too, and a lot of like my inspiration for SMART is that same kind of aspect of looking ahead to the next generation, right? So I know we have a lot of folks here from HBCUs. I'm curious to hear from folks, right? What do you see that your university may be doing already? Hope that your university will be doing in the future that can start to amend and give opportunities for us, Black and brown folks.
Good question.
Kando is too hyped though. Like
I'm so hyped. Y'all don't even know because, like I said,
He's fired up and ready to go.
Listen, that's what I'm saying. I got to throw this out here, right? Like I said, I'm a cooperative extension agent, and when cannabis becomes federally legalized, it's going to be regulated under the FDA and the USDA, right? The USDA is partnered with cooperative extension, and cooperative extension has an agent in every county of the United States, which means every single one of us, we can be talking to the Black community through our Black 1890 institutions. And that's literally what I was about to say. Next, Nadir was like, yo, I'm super blessed to be on this panel. I'm thankful for my ancestors who put this work in. And I want to challenge us, right? Freddie, I want to challenge you, right? I want to challenge you, Roz, like to really reach out to our institutions, right? We've done work in the past, but our call is so much bigger now, right? It's so much more work. And I think we have everything that we need. We have, especially through COVID, right? We saw our ability to feed each other, to take care of each other, to love on each other. You know what I'm saying? So the call, call Tuskegee when y'all need something. Like, this is our job. You feel me? This is
Wow,
our job. This is what we're supposed to do. And
Yes,
this is what our
yes.
history is built on. So as a cooperative extension agent, I am extending that open opportunity to
Yes.
connect and to work, because we have conferences. We do all sort of stuff year round. Like, it was just Earth Week. We just had a whole Earth Week celebration. So, like, let's connect. Like, this is our call and this is our time to do this.
Nah, you are on point like a needle, and much needed, to actually hear this, and that kind of sentiment I think is important, and the connections to our legacy, handling what comes out of it, this land is so important, that we understand the potential and fight to be a part of this. It's really important.
Hey, Kim Scott, you want to talk a little bit and share a little bit about FAMU and what you guys have been doing from what your knowledge base, or anything on your side on FAM? Because we were a part of the university getting funding. So I don't know if you guys know this, but and this is policy. The Florida A&M University gets $10 for every $75 medical marijuana card issued in the state of Florida. Almost $4 to $5 million a year. Reissue original card or renewal card. So every time you got a renewal, 10 goes to the university for research, marketing, and outreach. And I just think it's awesome. And Kim, I want to make sure we hear from you as well.
Amazing.
Yeah, so like you said, we get $10 for every medical marijuana card, but the university also has a program for cannabis where they basically hire, for lack of a better term, students and educators to go out and teach the community about cannabis and like access to medical marijuana through their cannabis program. And so that's like the really big thing that FAMU has been doing. FAMU also has a few acres of hemp property up in North Florida that they are trying to figure out what to do with it. So I'm not quite sure yet what the plan is for that, but I know that they are working towards doing something with that land.
Yeah. Yep. We currently, as an organization, work with the university. We are one of their outreach partners, and as well as help to get that policy in. So I would have been remiss. So that means Tuskegee, Morehouse, all your land grant universities, that policy is written. Email me. We'll give you the policy, and let's push your policy, your lawmakers to adopt that policy, because it's not like it hasn't been done before. There's been past performance. So you guys, we are about 3 minutes out before we're going to be calling a wrap, because guess what? It's Oscar night, and we have been so blessed to have
I want to tell y'all, I mean, I'm a film guy, so I love to watch the Oscars. Many of these films I didn't get to see, but something really incredible happened. I'm going to share with you guys. So Questlove is a buddy, and he's putting the music together for the Oscars. And one of the first things I did was I was a big part of the first film on hip hop. It's a movie called Wild Style. And I acted in this movie. That wasn't the plan. I had the idea for the film and got together with this independent underground filmmaker guy that we made the movie together. But anyway, I created all the original music for this film. And the main song that everybody raps to, if you ever get around to seeing Wild Style, is a song called Down by Law. And Questlove hit me up on Friday to get clearance to use this song, Oscars. I don't know where, but I'm like, what?
DVR everything. Go to the bathroom, DVR. We making sure we record.
For real, that's why we went upstairs and turned my DVR on.
I don't miss that like at all.
Yeah, but I really want to thank you guys, for Roz and you, Kit, for putting together this dope team. This has been really great. I've learned a lot from you dudes. I love your energy, and we want to try to figure out a way to keep the line of communication open. Because a lot of y'all is doing fly stuff. Like maybe we could figure out a way to work on some things together. I don't know, but
absolutely.
I like that. Like smart black energy is crazy. Y'all brought it. like oh shit.
Yeah.
That's what's up.
Over there is like, come on and bring it. No, Fab Five, Freddy, thank you so much for joining our panel. We are, abundantly blessed that you had the time to come and really talk to us and help us finish out our M for M 420 week of service. We took this week and we really highlighted and showcased you know, what M4M is really all about. And that is about the social advocacy and the social equity, about getting Black and brown people into an industry that has pretty much ostracized and penalized us for what they are making billions and billions of dollars
Cool.
on the body.
Great. So I'm gonna say one thing and then I'm gone. So I'm so glad I remembered this, right? So it was on 4/20/2017. We literally were pitching the movie in LA. We set up a pitch meeting at Showtime on 4/20 at 4/20 on the clock. Netflix stepped up, gave us the money. We made the movie. 4/20/2018, we were editing, and I was like, oh shit, a year ago we was pitching to try to get it. 4/20/2018, we were editing. Later, when we got the movie finished, Netflix said, we want to release this 4/20/2019. And on 4/20 last week, we literally signed this agreement with Curaleaf. And it wasn't planned.
Yeah.
But it's also my daughter's birthday. Her name is Sparkle. She turned 25 and she just graduated from USC a few years ago. So 4/20 means a hell of a lot to me.
Happy birthday, Sparkle. On this Sparkle girl. Happy birthday.
Yes, that's my little baby. You know what I mean? So look, thank you guys once again. Let me go up in there to get my DVR on. Let me roll up a little something sticky and green so I can do what I do. You know what I mean? I'm going to keep it 100. But thank y'all, seriously, Roz, and I'm definitely
I'll call you.
Get to connect so I can keep in touch with all of y'all and this here incredible brain power. I love this energy. Thank you, kid. All of y'all.
Thanks, fam. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. How do I turn this thing off?
Just X out. I take you out, man. Listen. But guys, don't go anywhere. I want to, as we get ready to wrap up, I am so grateful for my students, for Kit, for being here and supporting this just endeavor. It really is, and the dear brother, I appreciate you. You know, mad love, strong things that you're doing with Smart. We got to figure out. We always talk about how we're going to collaborate, but this is one of many things that we're going to look at. But you guys, just any parting words from anyone you want to just tell everybody out there before we wrap up?
Akan, no, but you're in my neck of the woods, so we will definitely be connecting because I am in the QC, which is not far from the NCCU. So definitely we will do some things. I'm just excited to work with all of y'all in different capacities and just be with young minds doing amazing things. Thank y'all for your time tonight. It is so
amazing. Amazing.
Yeah, I was going to say, shout out Kando, shout out Matthew for joining on behalf of Smart. Shout out M4MM for bringing us here and Curaleaf for hosting this space. I want to make sure that I get all of y'all contacts. I'll ask Roz for that.
I got
you. You know, the fall is here. It's going to be very soon. And we're going to be having a virtual cannabis career fair in May. So stay tuned for that. I want to make sure we get as many people as opportunities that are interested in getting into this space because as mentioned, diversity we're looking for it, and it's time.
Absolutely. Well, guys, if there's nothing else, if we covered it all, I want to thank everybody. Again, special shout out to Curaleaf. Thank you for your support. Thank you for just backing us up and making sure that we get our messaging and our conversation out there. And to all the students on today, we will see you guys. Happy 4/20. Until next year, we will see you and we are out. Thank you guys. Have a great night.
Have a great night, everyone. Thank you.